Everyone, welcome to A Mess Nonetheless. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Melissa. We are sisters, and we're back.
Welcome to season 2 of A Mess Nonetheless.
That's so exciting.
We're really excited to be here. Our summers were great.
Mm-hmm.
Some unexpected things, but lots of good things. And hope you all had a great summer. We're coming after Labor Day, which means everyone should be back in school.
Yes.
I know, like my kids started in August. What'd you say?
Yeah. I said hallelujah.
Exactly. So today we're going to be talking about seeing the good in hard times. But first, a couple of quick announcements. Just a reminder that last year, at the end of the season, we said we wanted to start highlighting women's ministries or businesses that are doing amazing things in the name of Jesus for women. And so please let us know if you're running a ministry like that or a business like that, or your friend is, or your sister is, or it's just someone. We just want to give shout outs to people who we're excited about. And then also this year, we are going to have an online Facebook community and a Mess Nonetheless Facebook community.
So excited.
I know. And the purpose of that is if you're like, hey, I listen all the time and I gain so much from this. And that's great. That's what we are here for. But also, what if you're like, but also I don't have a lot of like community or people to talk about these things with? Well, we want to have that. We want to have a community and a Mess Nonetheless community. And so we're going to have questions every week. We're going to have some community leaders in that group. If you're interested in being one, we are like one community leader short. So if you're interested,
let us know.
I was going to say, shoot us up. Please don't shoot us up. Hit us up or shoot us a message. That's going to work better. Because we're excited about that. And we're excited to have a place for people to connect. And we've got some exciting ideas about that. And in the process of that, we're going to do some see you in an hours on this community group. So you're going to want to be in it because Melissa and I are going to sometimes just post, hey, we'll see you in an hour. And we're going to jump on together and do a live, and people can ask us questions or we can just talk. But basically, we don't want to have to plan anything more.
Yes.
So we have decided that this was Melissa's great idea. What if we just like, hey, are you available? Let's jump on. And like, great, we'll see you in an hour.
We like to wing it.
We do. Yes. And so if you're in that community group, you'll get to be part of those lives with us. And we just want to communicate with people. We always talk to you guys as if you can talk back. And we've heard from so many of our listeners that you do indeed talk back, but unfortunately we cannot hear you. And so we're excited for that because we want to be able to like talk to each other. So
yes. Also, Rachel, are you and I wearing the same shirt? Just different colors?
Is this that one from Amazon?
It is. It's large. I shrunk it and it didn't shrink. So I want more,
like,
but
you bought a large shirt or it's a large
very
shirt?
large. Oh, I probably bought a large too, but it is very large.
Yeah.
It's very comfy.
It's very flowy. I like it. It's just great. It's one of my favorite t-shirts I think I've ever bought. So anyways, if you're not on YouTube and you want the link, or maybe we'll just post a link.
Yeah, we should, because it's real comfy and they got lots of colors.
It's
also,
true.
If you are watching on YouTube, and if I that's why I was wondering if I needed.
You need to be just a little louder.
If you're watching on YouTube and if I look like I'm grimacing half the time, I'm in a lot of neck pain today. So I'm fine, but that's why the face is the face.
The face is the face. And if you're not on YouTube, you're like, I don't know. I mean, you've been spared, but you've been spared. Yeah. So let's get to our topic because we took a little bit of time to do some, what do you call that? Housekeeping announcements. Yeah.
They're exciting. I'm so excited about the community page.
Me too. So we're talking about seeing the good in hard times. So to preface this a little, these hard times can be massive hard times, really awful hard times, or they can be just like unexpected turn of events, like not
inconveniences.
Inconveniences. Yes. So we're talking very vague here when we say hard times. Like all of a sudden your child's ride home from a sport fell through. Yes. And now you suddenly have to rejuggle everything, right? Like, which literally happened to me today. And thankfully I got it all sorted out, but like my husband works out of town. So I'm like, it's just me. And so that's an inconvenience, but also of course there's things like you've lost a job. Like, so massively hard times and small hard times. And we're just talking about in general, no matter what it is, when things did not turn out the way you hoped or planned or prayed for or prepared for.
Yes.
That we can still see the good in those times.
Yes. Yeah. Because the Bible is clear that, I mean, all things can be worked for good if we pursue Jesus in it. I mean, I'm paraphrasing poorly, but that's basically what it,
Well, I paraphrased and I did it poorly. It wasn't poorly. You just felt like it was.
That's been one of my favorite verses throughout my adult life and I talk to my kids about it all the time. I'm like, because annoying, hard, frustrating, inconvenient, big, small, little, they happen kind of on the daily, really, when you think about it. And so
literally, yeah. Well, and obviously, like we all have experiences where a vacation didn't go as planned, or, like I said, the rides you set up didn't go as planned, or your plans fell through, whatever. And the thing is like, it's okay to be disappointed. Like, that is not, we're not going to be like, don't be disappointed, only be positive. It's okay, I believe, to sit. In fact, every therapist has ever said to me, you need to sit in your feelings, because I am a repressor. Like, I don't want to deal with feelings naturally. And so it's good to sit in them. If you're someone who, I just always have to see the positive, it's like, but there is a beautiful time and a place. And I think it's necessary to sit in real feelings of disappointment or frustration or discouragement.
Well, because what happens is when we don't acknowledge the feelings that are still going on in our body, in our mind, even if we're pretending they don't exist, they start to do something to us. They take us down, or they start coming. Our mom always says they come out sideways. Like they're going to come out somewhere. You're just not going to have any control over it because you're not expecting it, because you haven't dealt with what's actually happening.
Right, exactly. However, on the flip side is, if the only thing we're doing is sitting in our feelings and focusing on the frustrations and the inconveniences and the negative,
nobody's going to want to be around you.
That is correct. You will have nobody who wants to be around you. That's like the perfect way to say it. And honestly, you're going to feel miserable yourself. Like, we all have had those seasons, I think, where we're like, wow, I'm really kind of negative right now. And I don't even want to be around myself.
Yep.
And so there's this fine balance, and we're certainly not here to tell you all the ways to have this balance. That's between you and Jesus to figure out. Like, you have your own personality, your own flesh responses. Like, we are all so different. Melissa's is different than mine. Mine's different than my husband's, and so on. But at the end of the day, I really think we both think two things: feel your feelings. Let's not pretend they don't exist. And then focus on gratitude. Focus on the things that are good, even in the hard.
Yes.
So I want to use an example of a friend. She, I actually gave a message this summer on joy. And I was like, I think joy basically equals gratitude. Like, we can have, you can be a joyful person, but unlikely you're going to be a very joyful person if you don't have gratitude. And like, people who lack gratitude lack a lot of joy. Like, I think that they're very
agreed.
Yeah.
Cohesive, go together.
Yeah. That's better than I was trying to say synonymous.
No. Yeah. What word are you thinking? I know what you're thinking.
Yeah. They're like the same.
Yeah. But we're synergetic.
Oh, synergetic. I wasn't looking for that word, but
there we go.
So joy and gratitude and joy, they go together. I mean, the Bible says in Proverbs, it says a joyful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. Like, okay, so focusing on some joy and some gratitude is going to help you and everyone around you.
Yep.
But sitting in our crushed spirit for too long, it dries up the bones. Like, I don't think any of us want dry bones. Like,
no,
it doesn't sound appealing.
No.
And so anyways,
sounds painful.
I wanted to use, what'd you say?
That sounds painful.
It sounds terrible. Like, I think we're supposed to have some moisture in our bones. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm just saying things, but
we're not doctors.
So I have this friend, and I used her in this message as an example. So their air conditioning went out in Arizona in June.
Ugh.
Right. Exactly. It's like
I'm
having
vomiting.
your furnace go out in the winter in the Midwest, like in parts where it's cold. You cannot deal.
No.
And so because they had to get it fixed so quickly, and they have 2 air conditioners because their house is pretty good size. So they have like 2, and the one was on the fritz and the one had gone out. So they just replaced them both. It was very expensive, like way more than they ever could have prepared for. And I agreed. I was like, I would never have thought it would have been that much. And she was like, well, that stinks. Did not see that coming. But, and like literally her very next statement was, I am so thankful that we have two good incomes that can provide for this.
Yes, exactly.
Lots of people, myself included, would be like, boo, I'm so sad that I have to spend all that money, all the vacations I can't go on, or all the clothes I can't buy, or whatever.
Yeah.
But she was like, she said it so many times. I'm just so thankful. And like that her husband gets bonuses, so they're not on this fixed income. And she's just like, that's what she was focusing on. And I was like, dang, that's convicting. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I came back from a vacation one time and all I could talk about was the negatives because everything did not go as I had planned. And I was really convicted, like, okay, but also there were a lot of good things that happened. And both Joey and I did it. We were only focused on the negatives and like it cost more than we expected. And like, there were all these things that went wrong at the hotel. And it's like, oh my gosh, get a grip, woman. Like,
right. You're on vacation.
I mean, right. And so it's something I've been very convicted of the last couple of years is like, it's okay to feel the things that we feel, frustrations and irritations and, anger and all that. But then the gratitude has to come in because there are always good things. Like my friend Margaret, the good thing in her was like, we have the money for this. We don't have to go into debt over this. Like that. That's what she chose to focus on. And and I feel like if you think of the most joyful people in your life, they're likely also the most grateful people you know.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, the least joyful people you know are also probably the least grateful, the ones who can't seem to find the good in anything.
Well, and what goes along with not focusing on the good is you end up just feeling sorry for yourself. And there's not a whole lot more unappealing than being around someone who's just always feeling sorry for themselves.
It's true.
And it's not, and I mean, a lot of times their circumstances are hard and frustrating. And I can, Bill and I have had, we've had years where things just kind of felt hard upon hard upon hard upon hard.
Right.
And hold on.
Sorry, I just coughed right into the microphone.
I like muted the microphone to cough as Rachel coughed into the microphone.
I'm sorry. I was just clearing my throat.
That's what I was doing, is clearing my throat. I have a gunky throat right now, so sorry. Anyways, so we had to start intentionally being really focused on being grateful because otherwise we were going to drown in self-pity and overwhelm. And we actually, when our kids were little, we had these canvases that we would write on a regular basis. We would just ask them what they were grateful for and we'd write it out for them because they were too little to write. And Bill and I would write things we were grateful for. It was just a really good way for us to refocus our mind because we were like, man, we have a lot to be thankful for and grateful for, even though it was a season, a long, long season of just kind of hard upon hard upon hard. And, but like when I look back on those years, I'm like, they were so sweet because that's when my kids were little and they were home with me all the time and they listened to me really well then. They liked being with me.
Those were the days.
One of my son's girlfriends said, how did you handle them all when they were little? And I'm like, they were way better when they were little.
That's right.
Way better.
They're out of control now.
They are. They're bigger than me and they're obnoxious.
Oh my gosh. Her kids are not actually out of control, but they are big and they are obnoxious. Like for instance, let me give a story. She's got these stools around her island and she's got these 3 ridiculous dogs. Don't get me wrong. They're fun and enjoyable, but they are ridiculous. And they are well loved. Too loved.
Very well loved by my kids, especially, and my husband.
All the boys will come in and pick them up and put them on the stools. So they're like at the counter, like humans.
Yes.
And Melissa has told them 1 million times, don't have them at the counter. Like who wants dogs at their counter? And if you do, shame on you. That's gross. And they just look at her and they're like, he, and they don't even stop. It's like,
no. I'm not even scary to them anymore.
No. And that's kind of having teenagers. I think having a good relationship with your teenagers is they know if it's, they push your buttons, but they're like, oh, this isn't like a big battle. So mom's going to let this go. And
I mean, literally when they were all little, I would snap to get their attention. Like if we were out in public, I have 5 kids and they were all, they're 6.5 years between top and bottom. And so they were very little and I needed to be able to keep control of them when we would go out in public. And I have this, so we're off topic here, but this is really funny and worth noting. So we were going into church late once, and for some reason I was alone with the kids. I don't know where Bill was. And the church that we were out at the time, there was like 2 staircases. One went up the right and one went up the left, and they all went up the wrong one. And I snapped twice, and they all stopped, turned around, and followed me.
Your little ducklings.
And there was like 3 or 4 adults, and they just were like, "Whoa, did you just snap?" And I'm like, That's how they learned to hear my snap, because I don't want to be yelling at them all the time.
Right.
Now they don't even hear my voice.
No.
I'm like, literally, do you hear me? Can you hear my voice? They're like, I hear you. I'm like, how am I supposed to know? You're not responding or looking at me.
I know. Oh my gosh.
Anyways,
teenagers and adults.
They're fun. I do love them, but
you do. They're great.
How
kids.
did we get here? I don't remember.
Oh,
we'll
who
go
knows?
Back to being
but
grateful.
yeah. Well, and I would say I think I'm going on a limb here, but I feel like most people are not naturally grateful. I feel like it is a very small percentage of people who like
correct
come out the chute grateful. You'd agree?
Yes. So yes, and my husband is one of those people who is very naturally grateful. In fact, let me tell you guys a story about this. So years ago when we were engaged, our youngest brother would have been 10 or 11 at the time. He made Bill loves the Packers. So in shop class in middle school, he had made Bill like a bubblegum machine that was like, looks like a Packers player or something. I can't remember. But as a joke, he's like, I'm going to only give him a little tiny box of bubblegum balls and like 10 bubblegum balls. And most people be like, what am I supposed to do with this? Why is this?
Instead of giving him the container, he gave him a box of bubblegum.
Yes.
Or not the container, the bubblegum holder. Okay.
Mm-hmm. But he didn't even give him a whole bag of bubblegum. He literally gave him a tiny little box with like 10 bubblegum balls. And Bill opens it up and he's like, oh, sweet gum, and starts eating it. And everyone's like, wait, that was supposed to be a joke. Why are you excited? He's like, I love bubblegum.
I love bubblegum.
And so he taught me how to start looking at being grateful because I am not naturally grateful at all. And I'm really good at feeling sorry for myself.
We've done an episode on that.
Yes. So
anyways. No, so I think if you're not like, if you can say to yourself, like, I know I'm not a naturally grateful person, and you're not being intentional about it, it's time to start working on that, because I think it goes a long way in our life, in our faith, in our relationship with, people around us, spouses, our kids, like, yeah.
And you're going to have a better relationship with yourself. You're going to like yourself more, because I know that if you're being honest, when you are grumbly, that feels terrible. Like you don't like being with yourself when you're grumbly and crabby about things, or feeling sorry for yourself, or yeah.
One of the first verses I ever memorized in like high school was like, do everything without complaining or grumbling, or it's complaining and arguing. I think it is. There's like different versions. And I needed to memorize that, because I was like, I do a lot of things with grumbling and arguing.
Yeah.
Complaining. It was kind of my MO. I mean, maybe it wasn't outwardly my MO, but it was definitely inwardly my MO. Like, I don't know that other people would have said, oh yeah, she's a big like complainer, but like maybe they would have, but like, I knew what was going
inside.
On. Yeah. And so, like last summer, we were talking, Melissa and I, the other day, about how last summer, so my family goes to Minnesota for a month to just like do all the summer family things. And last summer so this is ironic. Let me back up. The day before we left, we did not go to a 4th of July party that we had been planning to go to, because we found out that their out of town guest had COVID. So while they were like keeping themselves away in the house, they of course had been staying there, and we decided not to go, because we were like, we're not going to risk going to Minnesota and then like getting COVID and not being able to do our fun things that we planned. And then we get there, and like 6 days later, we get COVID. So
welcome to Minnesota.
Yeah, exactly. And so then of course, nobody really wanted us at their house. So we went and we stayed first I stayed at my sister-in-law's house, like in her basement. They have like a little apartment down there for a couple days. And then the kids, like, we would go for walks and we would go for bike rides and stuff. And so that was like we'd sit on the deck and talk with her. And it was an unexpected time I got to have with her. Then Joey came back into town, and then we went to my father-in-law's sailboat, which has like a little cabin underneath, and we stayed on the sailboat for 4 days, and we just sailed. And like, we weren't planning on sailing, I don't think, more than 1 day. And instead we got like 4 days of sailing. Now we missed out on a lot of things. I couldn't go to my grandson's birthday party. I, had to have him less time than I was planning. We couldn't do our beloved camp cousins, but we got some quality family time and on the sailboat that we weren't expecting. And like, I wouldn't have traded, I wouldn't have chosen that quality family time on the sailboat versus being with extended family. But at the end of the day, it's like, that's what we had to focus on. Is you keep looking like you're going to say something.
Sorry. Yeah. But I'm trying not to talk over you so people can hear.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think what you just said there is really key, is that just because you can learn to be grateful about a situation the way it turns out, doesn't mean that's what you would have chosen.
Right.
And I think that's really important to differentiate in your brain, is to because I think sometimes it's hard to be grateful for something that you're like, but I wouldn't have picked this, or I wouldn't have done this, or I wouldn't have wanted that. And especially if it's at the expense of something else. Like you said, you didn't get to be with the rest of our family during Camp Cousins. And it's not like you're like, oh, woohoo, I'm having so much fun. I'm so glad I didn't end up at Camp Cousins. It's just that instead of feeling sorry for yourself, and you would have been terrible for your kids, like they were disappointed too. Like you set an example for your kids. And as a family, you ended up having just a really special time. Even if it's not what you would have traded for. Yeah.
Exactly. Totally. And then like you, Melissa, this summer, you ended up working like 5 days a week when you weren't supposed to, and you work evenings, and that means that's when your boys are around.
Yeah. Well, so I am a server and a manager at a local restaurant, and we had some big changes that happened where I unexpectedly started having to work 5 nights a week, and it will be for an extended amount of time, probably 4 or 5 months. And and before that, I was working like 3 or 4 nights a week. So it's not a huge change, but it feels like a huge change, especially like I go into work at like 3:30. So I have to have dinner ready before, if I'm going to feed my family, I have to have it ready earlier in the day, which finding things that will either reheat or they can cook, or our crock pot has been a little bit more challenging than I expected. And I've missed like all of my boys' races, BMX races this year. I haven't been able to be at any of them because I've been at 2. That's it. And that has been that's been hard. And I've been sad about that. But my husband and I just keep saying how grateful we are, because obviously I'm making extra money right now. And like we plan on taking a family vacation next year, which I'm super excited about because we haven't gotten to do a big family vacation really. And before my kids, like I have kids who are going in the direction of college and marriage in the next couple of years. And so our whole life's going to change. And I'm like, I'm going to be able to pay for this vacation because of working extra. And so, just instead of being grumbly and sad for myself, I'm missing out on things, and it's shaken up my life quite a bit. It just, from like my days are kind of, it's just different. And but I'm very grateful for it at the same time. So
yeah. And so I keep thinking about how Jesus told us, like, remain in me, like I am the vine and you are the branches. Like, we are to remain in him. And I just know for myself, whenever my mindset has shifted, not for a split second, but like kind of drastically overall to the negative, and focusing on my problems, focusing on my concerns or my issues in life, that is me taking my eyes off of Jesus and not remaining in him. It's focusing on my circumstances. And when I'm focusing on my circumstances, I cannot also be focused on him and remaining in him. And not to say like I've walked away from my relationship with him, but that's not what he means when he's like, remain in me. Like the vine and the branches, it's like you only have the fruit from the branches because it remains, it's connected to the, the vine. And if we want to bear fruit, what'd you say?
Because it's connected to the source of
the source. And if we want to bear the fruit of joy in our life, then we cannot be focused completely on really anything that isn't Jesus. And we still like have to feel our feelings and we have to walk through things. But like I had done a couple prayer sessions recently with a woman who does prayer ministry. And she asked me about the specific thing that I was struggling with. How much time a day do you think you spend on this? Like thinking about this? And I was like, oh, hours, hours. It's constant. And she was like, that's a problem. And I was like, you're not wrong. Like, and I felt, it is a good question. It's good to ask ourselves that, like, if you're worried about your marriage or your finances, it's like, or your child, like, okay, how much time am I spending just worrying and focusing on it instead of praying and like going back to, like you said, the source. And so, it was really convicting to me that like, I am not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And then like in 2 Corinthians, in 4:18, it says, we fix our eyes on not what is seen, but what is unseen. So what is seen is like, I'm struggling with this relationship. I'm struggling with this, this change in my life. Okay. If we focus on that, if we fix our eyes on that, that means we're zeroed in on it. But then we're not also focusing on what is unseen, but like what is seen is so temporary. Everything in our life is temporary. I mean, this whole world is temporary. So we need to focus on what's eternal.
So I think I've told you guys this before. I really like visualizations, like imagery in my, when I think through things, and something that I think of sometimes when I'm thinking of focusing on Jesus. So I'm a photographer by trade. And when I think about looking at, I have a couple different lenses, and one is a wide angle lens. So when I look through it, I see everything. And there's not really point that I'm focused on in the picture. And when I take out my long lens, I can zero in like on a tiny detail. And those kind of come to mind when I think about Jesus. When I have the long lens just on Jesus, everything else just goes away. I don't even know. I almost don't even know what's happening over here. But when I have when I'm looking at everything around me, I can't even focus on Jesus in that because it's too broad of a visual or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So anyways,
too broad of a lens. Yeah. No, it's true. And so, I guess we can wrap up with a challenge here, unless you have something else specifically you want to share. But this has been a big thing for me in the last few years. This is not something I have mastered. It is something I am currently always working on. And I don't know that I will have mastered it, but I am definitely sharing from like, I'm in the depths of working on this.
Still working through it.
Yeah. And Melissa, you've worked through this a lot.
Yeah. Cause I started I started being very intentional about being grateful years ago. Cause I needed to be, like I said, and something that happened because of that. So without even meaning to, I'm told everywhere I go that I'm just really smiley, like strangers, especially old men. They're always like, "You're just so smiley." I'm always being told that by old men. They're like, you're just walking around smiling. And I'm like, I am. I didn't even know I was doing that. And that isn't because I'm purposely trying to walk around smiling. I really think it's come from this deep place within that years ago, I wanted to be joyful. Like I wasn't joyful and I wanted to be grateful. Like I said, it wasn't natural. And what has happened is that I can go through hard circumstances and really they don't rattle me a whole lot anymore. I'm not saying I never get sad or get down or get overwhelmed, but for the most part, like I even see this when I'm at work, I'm a server. So when it gets really, really busy, and there's been some nights where way busier than we expected. So we are a little understaffed. So then I end up having a lot of tables at once. And I just smile at everyone and do it. And it doesn't really rattle me and it goes really well. And then I'm able to provide good service that seems like a silly example, but I know that if I hadn't been practicing this for all these years, I would get rattled and I would shut down and then people wouldn't like me as a server. And then, they wouldn't want to come back and they'd complain about their service. And so it affects you ultimately long-term. It affects you in a lot of just areas that you're not even expecting it to.
Yes, absolutely. Do you have a challenge?
I guess just spend the next week really paying attention to your days and ask yourself the question, how much do I spend my time thinking about, if you have like one big issue in your life right now that is kind of overwhelming you, how much time in a day do you actually spend thinking about that? And if you're like, well, I don't really have anything big going on. And by thinking, I mean, like Rachel said, worrying and just ruminating on it, not talking to God about it.
Yes.
Obviously there's really big things that happen that we can't get off of our mind. But if we bring it to Jesus, that's a totally different thing. And if you're not in that place, just, how much do you find yourself grumbly and just about, like complaining, even if it's just in your head, on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm always typing as you're saying it.
Yeah.
That's how we wing it. That's how we roll. Well, like I used to come up with challenges before, but then after we talk, it's like, it
doesn't always flow. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't want to have to go back and listen to type it out.
No.
Okay. Do you have anything else?
No.
Or should we wrap it up?
It's good to be back. Thank you guys for joining us in our first episode of season 2. Can't believe we're already on season 2.
I know, it's crazy and exciting. Someone said to me, someone who follows me on my ministry page, like I have my own personal ministry page and I put like out little 1-minute sermons, if you will. That's how other people have coined them. But she follows me and she does a lot of the same thing. And she's significantly older. She's been married like almost 50 years. And she said, it's so cool that you get to work with your sister. Like, it's amazing that you even have the relationship that you can do that. And I was like, well, it didn't come without a lot of fighting and a lot of prayer, but I agree. It is so cool that like it was good. We took the summer off. We would have burned ourselves out. Just trying to schedule times to get together when our houses are quiet is like, it's such a crazy little show. So, but we've been excited about coming back and doing back. And here we are. So
and if you notice, my house looks different than it did last year because we have
your Christmas decorations are down.
Well, that's true.
You had them up for a while.
Water damage that ruined all of our ceilings and all of our flooring. So we were able, this is something I got to be grateful for, was obviously a pain in the butt. Took about 6 months to get it done. We lived with terrible ceilings for about 6 months and our floors were warped and gross and like our carpets were waterlogged. So they were stained. And I mean, it was terrible looking. but we got all new carpeting and all new flooring upstairs and downstairs. It's kind of amazing.
Beautiful. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're celebrating with you. Look out for the information on the community group and let us know who you want us to spotlight. So have a great day, guys.
Bye, guys.
You might feel that your life is a mess, but don't feel bad. Ours is too, but we own a microphone and we have no shame. That's why we'll talk about how our life is a mess nonetheless. That's the name of our podcast.